Hi, everyone. This is Christina Barr, and you're watching Black Tea News. Hello. Welcome to Black Tea News. Today, I'm your host, Christina Barr, and I don't have anything funny for you guys today because I'm coming in hot. I'm upset about some stuff. So we're going to hop right to it. Right after I thank Brighter Michigan Pack. Of course, I am in their studio today, and I thank them for being a sponsor. Again, if I say anything that triggers you, they don't care. I don't care. It doesn't work like that. I'm just grateful to use the space, and there's no one to fire me. That's not how it works. I am my own entity person thing. So thank you to them. Please go to blacktnews.com to check out different content that we have on the website. Make sure that you are dropping in your email so you get notifications and stuff. Make sure that you're subscribing to YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. All those handles are at Black Tea News. My only handle that is different is my Twitter handle, and that is at True Black Tea, and that is also the backup for my TikTok as well, because conservatives get censored all the time, so people have backups. But I've been doing pretty well. I did pass a milestone of 60,000, already over that mark too. So we have a steady increase there, though I have to argue with some pretty crazy people on that app. I was arguing with people today doing different takes on abortion is the big topic ever since Texas's law, and people try to bring up, I'll say nothing about the Bible. I will say nothing biblical because I know a lot of people do not submit to that level of authority, so it's a waste of time. I just argue rights. I argue biology. Yeah, people want to bring it up. And people had some really dumb hot takes, so I replied to the dumb hot takes today. So that's a little bit how my morning was going, but also prepping for the show. Lots of things happened over the weekend. Fauci is in trouble. People are so mad about Fauci because his organization is apparently funding experiments on puppies, on dogs and things. And so I saw stories about it, and then I was out to dinner yesterday with my family. My brother's looking at his phone. He's like, "Is this true?" I'm like, I believe that is the case. So people are losing their minds because of animals. But here's the thing. We've been talking about gain of function research for a while, and the conservatives were right-wing media was talking about the possibility of this in Fauci's lab or his funding for what happened in the lab. And people were like, "Oh, that's conspiracy theory." People started conspiracy theory when Trump talked about it. And when it started to kind of not look like a conspiracy theory, they're like, "Oh my gosh, well, it's not our fault because Trump isn't credible." I'm like, "Well, yeah, you've been bashing this guy for 4 or 5 years, making him look not credible. So of course he's not credible to you, and he's not credible to a lot of people. But you could have just analyzed the darn data and gone from there." So Fauci really pushed back against Rand Paul regarding gain of function research, and he was like, "No, it doesn't fit the definition." And comes to find out, his organization did apologize because they're like, actually, turns out we actually did. And so it just seems like there's less outrage for the fact that these people were doing, and for, if you're not familiar, gain of function research is they take a virus or something and they amplify it because they're trying to, I guess, future-proof the sickness or something. So they'll make a disease more deadly, and they'll try to find a cure for it. To, I guess, stop it in the future, but we could always just, wait to see what happens, because actually lab leaks happen more often than you think. Lab leaks happen more often than you think. So that's troubling, and there was always a strong possibility that it was at least possible, and people knew it was a less likely scenario that it happened in nature, just analyzing the virus itself. So people should be more outraged at Fauci. People should be more upset at Fauci because he's lied repeatedly. He's not a face of that you should be able to trust. His word isn't something that you should be able to trust. The media always try to to use him as if he was undermining Trump, or Trump was like ignoring science, which he didn't. A lot of times, I think, really undermine Trump, but he did at times. And Trump keeping Fauci around was a big mistake. I was talking to somebody the other day about it, and they're like, "Well, Trump didn't have a choice politically because they would have went after him." I'm like, "Well, in hindsight is 2020, and Trump's not in the White House right now, so he still just got rid of Fauci." But we still have Fauci, and people are upset because they've been experimenting on dogs, and all these people are dead, and they've been lying, and you can love animals all you want, but they're not more important than people. I'm not trying to say this isn't a gross thing that they're doing. Even PETA issued a statement about it. But we should just be more concerned overall about everything. And he should at least step down. Not necessarily for the puppies. If the puppies takes him out, oh my gosh. But for all the lies about the gain of function research, and just his credibility should be so shot. It's just insane. So that was one of the stories that broke over the weekend. That's about, I may go into more depth about it, but I wanted you guys to know. I'm fired up about Obama today because there's this big race in Virginia right now. They had to pull in the big guns. They had to pull in the big guns because it shouldn't be close. Hillary carried away with Virginia. Biden carried away, did a good job in Virginia. But you have Youngkin going neck and neck. And it's still probably more likely that the Democrats will take it, but I do hope that the suburban moms will be energized enough to push out the victory. They're talking about, I don't think Biden's gone down there yet, but they did call out Obama to try to save this campaign. And he said Obama came in to be the same elitist jerk that he always is. And people don't like when I use the term trash. They think it's too harsh. But I've always disliked Obama. I haven't really thought he was much of a good person. Like, I've heard Republicans say, I don't agree with his policies, but I still think he's a good person. Like, why? Like, it seems like there's things you can always like about someone. Like, he seems like he cares about his children and his wife and so on. But it's always seemed pretty obvious he has a particular disdain for the American public. I mean, after the election, he was asked, and I did write about this on blacktnews.com if you want to check this out. The article is titled, Obama Disses Black Trump Voters. Very straightforward. But he was asked, why do you think young black men and rappers or whoever have, why do you think so many black people have gone to Trump or tried out Trump? And he said that they were attracted to that stereotypical macho style. And when he was addressing pop culture, he said that they glorify values of wealth, power, frankly, greed, and not thinking about other people because you're so ruthless that you're just looking out for yourself. So that is what Obama said as far as why black people were, especially, I guess, young black men were deciding to vote for Trump. And they were just looking for the same kind of person. They said, yeah, that guy, that's who I want to be. That's what I want to be. So I do have links to that interview and stuff you want to check out on blacktnews.com. But I was pretty annoyed when Obama said that, because I'm like, all you have to do is like talk to people to actually figure out where they're coming from and be just a little bit sincere about why people vote the way that they vote. And I talked to a lot of black people. In case you didn't notice, I am a black person. And there was a lot when we went to the Detroit office. It was pretty jarring to see the election go the way that it did, because there was, if you went to like the Detroit office, there were people there all the time when they had an event. And granted, people do make phone calls to get people in the office, granted. But there were new people I had not seen. It's one thing if you see the same 5-10 activists throughout the years coming time and time again, but there was young people who haven't really voted Republican before, that were giving Trump a chance, that were really pushing for him. There was one young woman I did a video for Black Conservative Federation, and she was a new business owner, opened up like an eyelash shop, and she said her ex-boyfriend was the one who turned her on to Trump, who said, you need to look at him because he's talking about really good business proposals and stuff. And so she said she looked at Biden, she looked at Trump, and Trump was the one who made more financial sense. So when you talk about taking care of yourself in starting a business, do you really think that's just for you? No, of course, there's self-interest in that, but why do you want money? You want to take care of your family, you want to take care of your friends, like. So, I mean, Patrice Cullors, who's, from BLM, when they asked her, because she's a Marxist, and they're like, well, how can you justify buying up these big houses in these white neighborhoods? And she's like, well, I'm still caring for Black people when I'm doing things for me because my family's Black. Seriously, that was her reasoning. And I'm like, you know what? If you weren't a Marxist, no shade, totally no shade, because I understand that, because you want to take care of your family, you want to take care of your community, but that's what all people want to do. So it's not really fair to judge people who are also like very wealthy, like she is, when they want to do the exact darn same thing. So just like white people want to do that in the suburbs, Black people want to do that, or they stay in the cities and the urban centers, or if they move in the suburbs. People want to take care of their families. People want to take care of their communities. So if people decide they want to vote for Trump or do whatever because of economic reasons, it's just absolutely absurd that they would just say that's out of selfishness, especially when you have leftists who will go ahead and advocate for their policies they say it's to help other people, but there's really a selfish root to it too. Like they'll say we need to raise the minimum wage, and I understand that you think people should work more. I should earn more. Well, I guess it's just artificially earning more. It's not because your job has met that standard of wage or that you are that skillful. But when you raise the minimum wage, if you raise the minimum wage, it's a possibility there's a big possibility that many small businesses won't be able to match that. And now people are so blatant and hard up in that ideology. The new talking point, and I've even heard a congressman, like a Democrat congressman, say, well, maybe those people shouldn't be in business if they can't pay you that money. What? If it's so easy to pay yourself a living wage, then quit your job, start your own business, and pay yourself a living wage. So they don't care if they may destroy someone's small business for the purpose of their ideology. They just want to get paid more, or they want their friends to get paid more. Or with healthcare, they don't care necessarily if they have to destroy private health insurance. Most people prefer their private health insurance. I like their private health insurance. They just don't want to pay the bill themselves. So it's not moral to just tax someone because they have it and you don't, and make them pay your bills. It's not. It's absolutely not. So Obama was just radically insincere. He ought to know better. He ought to know better. I mean, but he's always said crazy, judgmental things like the people clinging to their guns and their religion. People don't like that. But people think, oh, he's so cool. He's such a nice guy, but he's just really a big elitist jerk. And he always has been. He always has been. It's not new. So anyway, he went to Virginia to advocate for this person running for governor, Terry McLaughlin. I'm really bad with the last name. That's probably why his signs just say Terry. But Obama was saying we don't need to fight these distractions, these culture wars, these ginned up culture wars. This is a distraction. And I'm oh. The left lives on culture wars. What do you mean? They push the culture, change the culture until the culture is policy. Don't let anyone tell you culture wars are not important. As a matter of fact, that's why Trump was elected in 2016. Obama ought to know how important culture wars are. And the way that they frame it like it's just a nothing culture war, when something really awful happened in Virginia, in Loudoun County, which we've talked about on the show, and we will talk about, but I'll play Obama just to get my blood boiling again.
We don't have time to be wasting on these phony, trumped-up culture wars, this fake outrage that right-wing media peddles to juice their ratings, and the fact that he's willing to go along with it instead of talking about serious problems that actually affect serious people, that's a shame. That's not what this election's about. That's not what you need, Virginia. Instead of forcing our communities to cut back at a time when we're just starting to recover, we should be doing more to support people who are educating our kids and keeping our neighborhoods safe.
So it's just a waste of time. All this is a waste of time. And it's a shame that Youngkin is talking about it. The people are talking about it. The right wing is talking about these silly culture wars. Well, people are concerned about their families. They're concerned about their children. Parents are concerned about their children, and that's nothing to laugh at. That's nothing to push aside, especially in Virginia, where you had all this crazy stuff going on in Loudoun County, particularly a man who had a daughter who was sexually assaulted on May 28th, if I'm not mistaken. And they did not do all what they were supposed to do. The county tried to keep it under wraps. He went to a school board meeting at the same time where there's parents upset about them trying to push, allow boys into girls' bathrooms if they identify as being girls. So there's that policy. And there's also parents upset about critical race theory. And there's also parents upset about the sort of sexual books that they are finding in their kids' schools and their kids' libraries and so on. So there's parents very upset. But this particular parent said he wasn't about, like, he's heard about everyone saying all the things that they were talking about, but he just wanted to be there for something accountable for his daughter. And he was upset by the sort of dialogue they had. The superintendent there at that meeting, this meeting was in June. He was asked, are you aware of anyone being assaulted in the bathroom? As a matter of fact,
and I'm not sure who can answer this. Do we have assaults in our bathrooms or our locker rooms regularly? I would hope not, but I would like clarification.
To my knowledge, we don't have any records of assaults occurring in our restrooms.
Okay, so
she said regularly, but he said, to my knowledge, we don't have any record of any sexual assaults. And that is a lie. That is a lie, because he sent an email out, the superintendent, and let people know that there was an incident back in May. So publicly, they don't want this big stink to happen. They don't want this known. So he lies at this meeting publicly. And privately, he knows very specifically about a girl who was sexually assaulted in the bathroom by a boy who likes to wear skirts. I don't know how trans he is. I don't know how gender fluid this kid is or whatever. But the point is, they know that there was a sexual assault in a bathroom. FYI, this kid sexually assaulted another girl at another school. So the superintendent lied about this, apologized, saying, he thought he kind of meant something else, but he admitted that it was misleading. There is one person who resigned on the school board that I'm aware of. People want the superintendent to resign. But the father of this daughter, he did get a little hype when he was on the podium. He did end up getting arrested, and he was the face of terrible domestic terrorist parents that was plastered everywhere. And we talked about this. So the National School Board Association wrote a letter to the Justice Department requesting that they do something and to look into whether they can use things like the Patriot Act and other means to go after these parents or whoever, because there's been a rise in threats against these people on the school board and teachers and so on. So one of the references that they had in that letter was this father who was embarrassed on national TV, made national headlines. This is a picture of the police when they were arresting him. The prosecutor of the county, who is like a George Soros backed person who is really soft on crime, wanted to personally prosecute him, the dad, but the school board listed him as a reference when they were giving examples to why they needed to have this letter, and the Justice Department look into it. Now, why is the federal government involved at all? Because it should be a local issue. They should be reporting to their local authorities. So the school board has apologized for their letter now. So FYI, it is good to press these people, to push these people, to push their lies, to let your outrage be known, your righteous outrage, because they did apologize. And you know what? It came out. The whole entire National School Board Association was not consulted before releasing that letter to the DOJ. That was like the head and maybe like one other person. But it was not the full school board. They said that they were uncomfortable with some of the language. They thought it was too extreme. And it also would have been a local matter. Now, maybe they're just saying that in like retrospect, and they would have actually gone along with it. But that's what was revealed through like some FOIA requests when some emails and texts and stuff were known. What we also know now is that they were in coordination, the people who made this letter, with the White House before they released the letter. They were in coordination with it. So there was an email talking about how, hey, you know, we're getting the things that you requested, you know, the examples. So the White House was aware of the school board releasing this letter. So they're in coordination to make the letter. The National School Board Association makes the letter, releases the letter, and then Merrick Garland joins in and then has a task force to look into it. Do you see how this is going? So the White House obviously wants to get involved with these things. It's bad politically. They do have a very culture war agenda as far as what the gender ideology, the trans stuff, the CRT, equity over equality. That's what they want. They don't want these parents to be hyper politicized into fighting against this crazy agenda. So how can they tamper that down? I'm assuming it was the collusion between the White House and the National School Board Association putting out this letter, because that would be a local issue if people were actually going out making threats and stuff to these school board people. Those be local things. But the DOJ wanted to have some kind of reason to act and get involved. Therefore, they're coordinating with the National School Board Association to release that letter so Merrick Garland could respond. Can't make this stuff up. But it's so on trend for Biden, who was a part of the Obama administration, because they would politicize this stuff all the time. So anyway, to go back to Obama, talking about we don't have time for these culture wars and just brushing off the sort of things that happened, my blood just got boiling because a man's daughter was sexually assaulted. Everyone is aware of it. It was something they tried to keep under the rug with this man. And it was the Daily Wire. So one of their reporters that did an investigation on it that got a full story about it and got some darn accountability and got the balls rolling. And then it got picked up more. It was Matt Walsh from the Daily Wire, went to one of the school board meetings and stuff. And they tried to stop him from going. They made all these extra rules and stuff. He actually had to, I believe, rent out a woman's basement for $1 so he could be able to speak at the school board meeting. And granted, maybe you only want people who actually are citizens of the state and county or whatever to be able to speak at those events. But people need to shine a national light on some of this stuff. So Obama just brushing this stuff off. When I think about that, I don't have kids. I have a nephew, another nephew on the way, and 2 nieces. And I think about them And I think about the kids I will have one day. I just think about kids in general, and I try to empathize with these parents in a scenario like that, just trying to protect your children, and someone who wants to warp them in the most insane, inhumane ways, trying to brand you as a domestic terrorist, and you get upset and you show up at the school board meetings, and maybe you start knocking doors for the candidate who cares about those issues, and the former president of the United States gets up somewhere on the campaign trail talking about, oh, let's just make believe culture war nonsense. He's always been trash. I know people don't like when I say that. I do not care. I do not care. Not a person. Not a good person. They love these culture war stuff. They want to push the culture. He's the one who said racism was a part of America's DNA. Not freedom, not liberty, not the things that are actually written in the Declaration of Independence or the Constitution. He said racism is a part of America's DNA. As the first, he's mixed, by the way, black president. That's what he decided to put out there in the atmosphere. Obama has done some incredible damage, and a lot of that is elevating Joe Biden to where he is right now. And then a lot of Obama staff is obviously in the Biden administration. So let's go back a little bit. Remember when? Remembering when when Obama was president is pretty bad, but we're already in a pretty bad situation. Biden is just pretty much the continuation of it. So, but it was toward the end of his term, Scalia unfortunately passed away suddenly, and he nominated Merrick Garland. And Merrick Garland was supposed to be like this paragon of virtue, and people were concerned because obviously this is going to change the landscape of the country and of the courts. And I remember, I guess this isn't too inside information, I can probably tell the story, but Ronna McDaniel, who's the chair of the RNC, I remember she was talking to someone, I was kind of overheard it, but the concern in her eyes, and she was she said when they got the news, she was maybe out to dinner with her husband, and she was just like, I am really genuinely concerned about the future of our country. And that really changed the dynamic of the race, because there were some who just didn't like Trump at all. And at least they could have the talking point of the Supreme Court. And so Obama nominated Garland. And of course, if you're aware of the history of what happened, McConnell would not have him go through confirmation hearings. They used a Biden rule, is what they called it, funny enough, that we're in an election year. We have a Republican House, we have a Republican Senate, and the people are going to decide who's going to be the president, and that's how we will decide where the future of the courts is going, because Hillary will win if they want her to pick a judge, and if the nation wants I keep this balance or whatever, we will have Trump the president. And so I was concerned that they would not hold out, but by gosh, McConnell risked it all, and Trump ended up winning the presidency. And Obama was so mad. Democrats were so mad. People were so mad when Trump got to appoint his pick. People were like, they stole this seat. But it was obviously a very good thing. There's obviously very good thing that they held it off the way that they did. But let's go back to that day when Obama nominated Garland.
And today, after completing this exhaustive process, I've made my decision. I've selected a nominee who is widely recognized not only as one of America's sharpest legal minds, but someone who brings to his work a spirit of decency, modesty, integrity, even-handedness, and excellence. These qualities and his long commitment to public service have earned him the respect and admiration of leaders from both sides of the aisle. he will ultimately bring that same character to bear on the Supreme Court, an institution in which he is uniquely prepared to serve immediately. Today I am nominating Chief Judge Merrick Brian Garland to join the Supreme Court.
Okay, yeah, so it didn't happen. So he did have support from. If they would have had the confirmation hearings, I'm pretty sure Republicans would have relented, and because you would have had Collins and Murkowski and people like that, and so they would have got the numbers for McConnell deciding not to even have him go through the process. It was a pretty boss move, and thank God he did it. But Merrick Garland, when he was confirmed for Attorney General, that was 70-30, I think was the number. Yeah, 70-30. So obviously Republicans decided to confirm him for Attorney General. I thought there were some pretty troubling things when he was going through nomination. One of them being his response or lack of wanting to respond about how biological men competing in girls' sports was obviously unfair to women, and he would not give his opinion on it. And I can understand why he didn't, but if you can't even like just say the truth, man. So I was concerned, and Ted Cruz had some back and forth with him as well. I'm going to play a little bit of Ted Cruz during his confirmation hearing with Garland, because he just goes a little bit through history lane with stuff that happened in the Obama administration.
I am not the president's lawyer. I am the United States lawyer, and I will do everything in my power, which I believe is considerable, to fend off any effort by anyone to make prosecutions or investigations partisan or political in any way. My job is to protect the Department of Justice and its employees in going about their job and doing the right thing according to the facts and the law.
Under the Obama administration, the IRS targeted the political opponents of the president. It targeted conservatives for their speech. It targeted pro-Israel groups. It targeted Tea Party groups. It targeted individuals perceived to be on the opposite political side as the administration. Will you commit as Attorney General that you will not allow the Department of Justice to be used to target those who are perceived as political opponents because they are political opponents?
Absolutely, I will not.
So that's what he said. Everyone's like, "Oh, Merrick Garland, he's the paragon of virtue, integrity, et cetera, blah, blah." And Ted Cruz, and he promised that he wouldn't do partisan things, which Obama, man, they weaponize so many. Like, people said, let's get back to norm. If Obama was the norm, it was hostile. It was hostile to people who didn't think like them. If you had the wrong sort of opinion. So you know I'm mentioning this, right? Because Merrick Garland is a liar. Merrick Garland is a liar, especially in regards to his announcement that he had with the Justice Department responding to the National School Board Association's letter that we know that the White House coordinated to make in some regard before they released it. So the White House coordinates with some of the members of the National School Board Association, not even like the full board, just like 2 or 3 people or something like that, because they didn't have the consult with the full board, and the board didn't like it in retrospect. So anyway, they make this letter, they release this letter, and after they release this letter asking the Justice Department to consider using things like the Patriot Act against these domestic terrorist parents and so on, you had Garland who said this, citing increase in harassment, intimidation, and threats of violence against school board members, teachers, and workers in our nation's public schools. Today, Attorney General Merrick B. Garland directed the FBI and the U.S. Attorney's offices to meet in the next 30 days with federal, state, tribal, territorial, and local law enforcement leaders to discuss strategies for addressing this disturbing trend. These sessions will open dedicated lines of communication for threat reporting, assessments, and response by law enforcement. And it goes on. It goes on. He said threats against public servants are not only illegal, they run counter to our nation's core values. Those who dedicate their time and energy to ensuring that our children receive proper education and safe environment deserve to be able to do their work without fear of their safety. And that's absolutely right. They should be able to. But again, this will be a local issue, not a DOJ issue. Their involvement is political, very political. So Garland had a hearing. And if you're curious where they got this data from, it's very curious.
First sentence of your memo, very first sentence, you said, in recent months, there's been a disturbing spike in harassment, intimidation, threats of violence.
Yes.
When did you first review the data showing this so-called disturbing uptick?
So I read the letter, and we have been seeing over time threats.
Whoa. I didn't ask you. So you read the letter. That's your source?
So let me be clear. This is not a prosecution or an investigation.
Is there some study, some effort, some investigation someone did that said there's been a disturbing uptick, or you just take the words of the National School Board Association?
Well, the National School Board Association, which represents thousands of school boards and school board members, says that there are these kind of threats. When we read in the newspapers reports of threats of violence, when that is in the context of threats of violence.
The source for this, for the very first line in your memo.
Time of the gentleman has expired.
Was the School Board Association letter?
Expired, Mr. Deutsch.
First sentence.
Sorry, I didn't mean to play that again. So, if you're following along, Merrick Garland's response as the Attorney General, his memo, their action, which it should be local, not DOJ. He's getting his information not from data, not from something they have realized as an uptick. There's no source of data they're going for. His source is the letter that was coordinated by the White House to be created, that wasn't approved by the whole board, just a select few. Because the board now is apologizing and thought it was, according to emails, thought it was a bad idea, thinks it should remain local, thinks the wording was far too extreme. So Merrick Garland promising not to get political. Obviously, this was political. Obviously, it's political. And I'm not sure how far down the rabbit hole goes, but I thought there was something else that was pretty interesting that happened in the hearing too.
It also concerns us that your actions may have been motivated by your family's financial stake in this issue. Published reports show that your son-in-law co-founded a company called Panorama Education. We now know that company publishes and sells critical race theory and so-called anti-racism materials to schools across the country. And it works with school districts nationwide to obtain and analyze data on students, often without parental consent. On its website, the company brags that it's surveyed more than 13 million students in the U.S. It's raised $76 million from powerful investors, including people like Mark Zuckerberg, just since 2017. My first question is this: are you familiar with Title V of the Code of Federal Regulations, which addresses the rules of impartiality for executive branch employees and officials?
I am very familiar with it, and I want to be clear once again that there's nothing in this memorandum which has any effect on the kinds of curriculums that are taught or the ability of parents to complain about the kinds of...
I understand your position on the free speech of parents.
It is
wait just a minute. The question is, the thing that has concerned many of those parents that are showing up at these school board meetings, the very basis of their objection and their vigorous debate, as you mentioned earlier, is the curricula, the very curricula that your son-in-law is selling. So to millions of Americans, I mean, my constituents, I was home all weekend, I got an earful about this. They're very concerned about that. Subpart E of that federal regulation says an employee of the executive branch is discouraged from engaging in conduct that's likely to affect the financial interest of someone close to them. Your son-in-law, your daughter, clearly meets that definition. And so the question is, did you follow that regulation? Did you have the appropriate agency ethic official look into this? Did you seek guidance as the federal regulation requires?
The answer was no, by the way, or at least he wouldn't really say. So obviously the answer is no, because he didn't feel like he needed to get an ethics guideline with that. Yeah. So he has a relative that profits off of working with school boards and pushing critical race theory. And he issued a letter that is going to coordinate and apparently go after these parents, or at least intimidate. That I would assume that is the goal. But why should that be the only goal? Because they don't mind keeping political prisoners, I guess, in this administration. So I don't know how far it goes, but because it is crazy that you would ask the DOJ to use the Patriot Act. It's crazy. It's crazy. So he uses this letter for the basis of his memo of assembling the task force to go after these people, doing the threats or whatever. And the only data he has is the letter that the White House coordinated with the National School Board, only some of them, to create. Do you guys see how crazy this web is? Do you see how absolutely bonkers this is? So an easy way for Merrick Garland to have absolved himself of any sort of ethics problem with this was to not get involved. This wasn't a DOJ issue. That father who his daughter was sexually assaulted, and that's why he got a little rowdy at the school board and got arrested a little bit. The local authorities took him away. People made him a big story. People made him the face. They referenced him in the letter. But he was a human being who obviously had a reason to be upset, obviously. So local authorities dealt with that. And if they don't fire all of the police officers for not being vaccinated, they can continue to do their jobs. So Merrick Garland didn't need to have some sort of ethical issue, but it raises the question, obviously, why the DOJ would want to get involved with this. But we know the answer. Because they're into the culture wars, the thing that Obama just wanted to just shove off like it's not a big deal. People want the Republican sound bites, and there's really important issues going on. Yeah, people are concerned about a lot of things that Biden is screwing up. People are very concerned about the economy. It's one thing when you have a problem when there's no jobs. It's another when you've conditioned the population to not seek them out. And we have supply chain issues and inflation. And yes, people, their wages are rising, but it's not keeping up pace with inflation. So it's like they have less money. It's not fun when people go to the gas station or go to the grocery store. And things that they purchased are far more expensive. And the Biden administration tries to just shove it off as if this is just a problem for people with a lot of money. That's crazy. I told that to someone the other day and they got so mad. They're like, no, my gas tank feels this. The dollar store is talking about raising their prices. If you get your stuff at the dollar store and it goes more than $1 and you were depending on the fact that it was just $1, that little bit of margin that you needed can be devastating because it's not there. So Obama, of course, is full of it. And a lot of these heated culture wars and stuff that people talk about are things that he's the one who brought to the forefront. This bathroom, locker room stuff, that was his DOJ that made a big thing. I was talking to someone about when Larry Elder had a question about this when he's on the campaign trail. And he essentially said something along the lines of, I don't think he would really try to regulate the bathroom thing. And if someone has gone through the process and they want to use the bathroom, whatever. And so people on the right they were more upset about other stuff that Larry said, because Larry said he didn't believe the election was stolen. So I had more conservatives who were upset about that. And then some people brought up that point about the bathroom thing, and I'm like, to me, that's the thing that's more controversial. But you have to understand that Larry Elder is a libertarian. And then I explained, I'm like, we didn't talk about bathrooms that often in the past. If you can remember, Obama, they're the ones who started sort of pushing to make that a thing, as people trying to push those boundaries locally. They're the ones who really like, we're going to start denying funding for schools if they want to not accommodate trans students. And there was some kind of city ordinance in Charlotte that made it so that you had to allow transgender people to use whatever bathroom they wanted. And then there was a bigger response by the government that said, no, you have to go by your gender. And then all these celebrities were like, oh my gosh, and all these companies wanted to pull out because of the response to that. So my reaction to Larry's thing is, his opinion is probably, if you can get away with it, nobody needs to be none the wiser. Which I think that you should go to your bathroom accurate equipment, in my opinion. But we didn't used to talk about this stuff all the time. But when the left decides that they want to push the culture forward and they want to be super progressive and they want to make it so that sex and gender is just something that's so interchangeable, to the point where you can have a boy playing in a girl's sport. And so what if they took a little bit of estrogen? You know that testosterone is giving them an advantage. You might as well have, even if a girl took a bunch of drugs and stuff, that still wouldn't be as big of a benefit as that testosterone. And you want us to just ignore that as if it's not a thing? just let it go. That's crazy. That is absolutely crazy. When they push these things, you're not supposed to notice it. You're supposed to just lay down and take it. Yes, that's exactly what they want. That is exactly what they want. And when we have a situation with the Loudoun County and that girl being sexually assaulted and the county covering up, the superintendent lying because they were so devoted to this ideology rather than protecting their darn students. There's this one really big TikToker named Victoria Hammett. And there was another story some months ago, whatever, where she was just really, really defending trans and bathrooms and stuff. And she was trashing conservatives. So people brought up this case and she's like, oh my gosh, you guys only care about sexual assault when something like this happens. And she said, trans women are sexually assaulted more than in men's bathrooms than they are in women's bathrooms. So you have to allow them into women's bathrooms. It's like, oh, so men are more aggressive toward each other, or just a more aggressive period. So you want them into the girls' bathroom? What kind? Why is not? And she's a young woman herself. And I don't know if she's just so devoted to the ideology that she can't think straight, or if she's just simping for views. I'm not sure. But why is there no consideration for the young women? Why was there no consideration about his daughter who was violated? This isn't a hypothetical. She's a real victim. She's a real victim. So Obama brushing off like, oh my gosh, the parents. Youngkin's concerned about things that aren't real. A lot of people are concerned about other meat and potato issues like the economy, which Biden is blowing. They're concerned about Afghanistan, which Biden blew. They're concerned about a lot of things. Biden isn't good at his job. And Obama was smart enough to know that he wouldn't be. But it's okay if America is collateral damage, because they can't rebuild America if they don't tear it down first. There's another thing that I saw today, a book from Loudoun County. A parent said that they were going to go crazy or about to rage some heck about it. So prepare yourself. So in this book, there's, first of all, I did not understand that these are both, I thought these were two boys. And I had to read this like 3 times before I understood that apparently these are 2 girls. Because the smaller one definitely looks like a young boy, and the bigger one looks like an older, I don't know, boy with a braid. It's the the art style is not my favorite, I gotta say. So anyway, they're both girls. Obviously, one has embraced a sort of butchy sort of appearance, and they are sleeping over. They're in the bed, and apparently they like each other. And the one with the short hair reaches out to the girl. Now they're both in bed. They're kids. Remember, they're kids in bed. And the boy, well, the girl with the butchy hair believes that she is a boy and opens up about it. And they embrace. And they're like, it's okay if you think that you're a boy, and so on. And they hug, and they're like, yeah, I'm so glad I could tell you. And then they kiss pretty intimately in the bed. These kids. I don't know what the age difference is, by the way. She's obviously bigger than the one with the braid. So I don't know if this is sort of grooming-ish. But this is the book. This is the book. And FYI, it was in the children's elementary. Yeah. So that's why the parent was upset and said they're going to raise some heck about it. Again, this is also in Loudoun County. People have had to have found out about some really weird stuff in Loudoun County and pointed it out. And so there's another book with some really weird stuff. Now, what's really gross, or maybe they're just gaslighting, or maybe they just had no morals and standards or whatever, but the person who shared it on Twitter, and I believe I retweeted it. Yeah, I said this is sick or something like that. There are people saying, I don't see what's wrong with it. You don't see anything wrong with you allowing some kids to sleep over like that, and then they end up making out in the bed? I mean, the gender confusion is one thing, but you don't find anything inappropriate about the kids just making out in the bed upstairs? And then it's in the grade school's library? You're talking about what, kindergarten to 5th grade, maybe 6th grade? You think that's age appropriate? Really? Give me a break. And some people are like, what, you've never gone to sleepover before? You know what? My parents would not let me go to sleepovers. I've been to sleepovers with my cousins, and even those are far and few in between. And I did not, and when I'd have, we rarely were actually allowed to go to parties. Every time my dad we wanted to go somewhere, my dad would say, I have to pray about it. And sometimes it seemed like I have to pray about it was just pushing it off because they didn't want to answer right then. But I'm sure he prayed about it 80% of the time. And so if they felt it was okay, we would go. But they trusted if something happened, then we would call or something. I got to go to more places than some of my other siblings who were a little more, we didn't really do anything bad, but I was far less rebellious than the eldest one, if you know who that is. If you're aware of my family, then you're aware who that is. So I got to do more things with permission anyway. And but if I went to a party and they were having sleepover stuff, I got picked up at night before the sleepover stuff happened. My parents were very, very protective in that way, and parents should be more protective. Apparently, if they're putting it in your books in the elementary schools. So yeah, that's never happened to me to sleepover. And didn't really go to sleepovers, and I probably won't let my kids do that either. And I did not sleep over a friend's house until I was 17. And that's because she was taking me to the SATs in the morning. So I'm glad I had good parents. And I'm not saying that if you let your kids go to sleepovers that you're not a good parent, but you should definitely be vigilant. I'm glad that my parents were protective. And that I'm not saying things didn't happen that I don't want to say scarring. I'm not going to say that everything was hunky-dory, especially not for everybody, but there was definitely minimal opportunity to screw us up. So please protect your children. So there's a parent really upset about this book, and I think they should be, because I don't care what you say, that's obviously not age appropriate. That is not age appropriate. What sort of even values are you even trying to teach to have that in a school library? What is the educational value of this? I understand that people probably think there is, but regarding the demographics of who is in that school, what are you trying to influence the children with? What are you trying to influence the kids with? So that's another thing that's going on in Loudoun County, and Obama thinks it's just waste of time, talking points, Republicans talking their talks and getting sound bites on Fox News, because he's gaslighting. He's gaslighting. He knows good and well that a lot of the culture war stuff is his fault, stuff that they push because they want to push America off a cliff. And if you notice, they gaslight you. But we got to keep pressing. We got to keep pressing. I was going to talk about some COVID stuff, mandates, and BLM is actually sticking up for a basketball player. They had a march over the weekend, and which is really nice. It's nice that they're sticking up for something that's not like tearing down the American family. So and people do need to push back. And Stephen A. Smith was like talking about this particular basketball player, saying, who does he think he is? He's not, doing nothing. And so at least there's people rising up for him. But I'll have to talk about that more tomorrow, because we are already at an hour's time. And I did not even get to talk about going to my website and looking at some of my material, guys. So please go to blacktnews.com, check out different content that I have written, different articles. I will have all this stuff with Merrick Garland and Obama and these connections and the school board, and I will have that on the website. Definitely make sure that you check out and share the different articles that I have. But please make sure that you look at some of the material that I have. If you would be interested in buying some product, I do have the pumpkin spice season mugs in the black, the orange, and the red. I did draw that cute little chibi chop right there. I do also have it in a shirt as well, so you guys can check out that kind of stuff. I do have the My Money, My Business shirt. I made that because I was so sick of people talking about my body, my choice, and the abortion issue. And I'm just like, guys, if you guys want federal funding, everyone has a right to talk about it. Everyone has a right to participate. And there's a lot of things that we can talk about with the government, everything, because it all involves our money. So that's available at blacktnews.com. I have the You Are Not That Special shirts. I have those in the mugs. I have stuff with Frederick Douglass. I got stuff with black tea. Got the Be Better Not Bitter shirt. And I also always have to represent the GOAT hoodie. I do have those in different colors. If you are someone who likes to stain things, I got them in black and pink and red and blue. And I do have shirts as well if you don't want the hoodie, but it's cold outside, getting cold outside, a little nippy. So you might want to go ahead and get the hoodie now. And I do have different things that are long sleeve shirts as well. Denounce white supremacy, defeat Joe Biden shirt with the history of his racism on the back. Got pro-Trump stuff, and I am not the victim you're looking for, and so on. There's no stuff. Please check out the merchandise on blacktnews.com. And if you like this show today, I think it was very, very informative. please consider leaving a donation at blacktnews.com, blacktnews.com/donate. If you like what we're doing here, you want to see it expand. I was so glad that Daily Wire was able to pick up. There was a woman who worked for ESPN. She would not relent to the vaccine mandate. So she said she was trying to get pregnant. And so she quit her job, decided to make that decision, and Daily Wire decided to pick her up. So I was glad that they're able to do that. They started, with Ben Shapiro writing articles and as a young man, and it kept expanding, and so on to what they have. So we like to see Black Teen News grow. So if you want to be part of that, please consider leaving a donation at blacktnews.com. And you can just leave an outright donation. You can buy some merchandise, whatever you do to help spread the word, which includes sharing this video, sharing other videos and articles and so on. I appreciate everything that you do. Make sure that you're following me on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, all at blacktnews.com. At Black Tea News is the handle. The only one that is different is Twitter, which is at True Black Tea. Thank you guys so much for watching today, and I will see you tomorrow.